smoke, silence, and one terrifying decision. On July 11, 1973, a passenger jet filled with diplomats and journalists began its descent into Paris, but never reached the runway. What happened inside that cabin became one of aviation's most chilling mysteries and sparked a safety revolution no one saw coming. This is the fire no one saw until it was too late. It was the early morning of July 11, 1973. VARIG Flight 820, a scheduled international service, lifted off from Galeão International Airport in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Its destination, Orly Airport in Paris, France, with a final leg planned to London. The aircraft was a Boeing 707-320C with over 21,000 flight hours. It was nearly full, carrying 117 passengers and 17 crew members, a mix of diplomats, journalists, musicians, and families chasing dreams across continents. Among the crew was Captain Gilberto Araújo da Silva, age 49, a seasoned pilot with 17,959 hours of flight time, including 4,642 hours on the 707. Calm, methodical, and deeply respected. He had flown this route many times before. Beside him sat First Officer Alvio Basso, 46, with over 12,000 hours, and Flight Engineer Clonor Bello, 38, a technical expert with nearly 10,000 hours in the skies. Navigator Zilmar Gomez da Cunha, 43, rounded out the primary flight crew. In the relief crew, ready to rotate in during the long-haul journey, was Captain Antonio Fujimoto, 45, a quiet but confident pilot with 17,788 hours, including 3,221 on the 707. He would later become central to the aircraft's fate. Also on board, relief, First Officer Ronald Udermol, just 23 years old with limited experience, Flight Engineer Carlos Neto Diefenthaler, and Navigator Salvador Ramos Heleno, both veterans of the skies. The cabin crew included 9 attendants led by Chief Purser Juan Egidio Galetti. Everything about this flight felt routine, but behind the calm exterior, fate was already writing a different ending. At 13:57, VARIG Flight 820 was cleared to descend to flight level 80, just 8,000 feet above the ground. The crew contacted Orly Approach, expecting a routine arrival into Paris, but within seconds everything changed. A passenger had entered the aft right lavatory and discarded a lit cigarette into the waste bin. There was an ashtray, but they didn't use it. Inside the bin, paper towels ignited. The fire spread silently, hidden behind plastic and wood paneling. There were no smoke detectors, no fire suppression systems, no alarms. Just white wisps curling toward the ceiling. The investigation revealed a chilling truth. The cabin crew had no chance. In response to this disaster, the Federal Aviation Administration issued Airworthiness Directive 74-08-09, mandating sweeping changes. Smoke detectors installed in every aircraft lavatory, fire-resistant waste bins and materials, placards prohibiting smoking in lavatories, ashtrays placed at designated locations, crew training in onboard firefighting, announcements reinforcing smoking bans. Cabin crew, Alan Terces and Edmar Mascarenhas, were the first to notice. A passenger emerged from the lavatory gasping, saying he'd almost died in there. Edmar grabbed a fire extinguisher. Alain tried to cut electrical power to the lavatory, but the fire was already beyond reach. Engineer Carlos Diefenthaler and steward Carmelino Oliveira rushed to assess the situation. Smoke was now drifting into the cabin. Passengers began coughing. Panic spread. Elvira Strauss, another flight attendant, tried to calm them, reassuring them they were minutes from landing. At 13:58, Chief Purser João Galletti entered the cockpit. His message was chilling. There's a fire. Passengers can't breathe. The fire had reached the aircraft's electrical systems. Circuit breakers began to pop. Lights flickered. The cabin darkened. Andrea Pija, in the forward lavatory, saw the lights go out. She watched Carmelino rush past with an oxygen bottle, but it was too late. The smoke turned black, thick, and toxic. Carbon monoxide levels soared. The crew tried to depressurize the cabin and reroute airflow, but the smoke kept coming. Relief pilot Ronald Udermiel joined the firefighting effort. He never returned. Passengers in the rear began to lose consciousness. Some tried to move forward, others stayed seated, trusting the crew. The fire was now uncontrollable. The cabin was a choking maze of smoke and fear. In less than 5 minutes, a hidden fire had turned a routine descent into a race against death. And the worst was still to come. Inside the cockpit of VARIG Flight 820, the atmosphere had turned apocalyptic. The fire, now raging in the rear lavatory, had breached the cabin's defenses. Smoke poured forward, invading the flight deck, thick, black, and blinding. The crew scrambled for oxygen masks, but there were only 5 masks, and now 9 people were crammed into the cockpit. Some stood, others crouched, all gasping for breathable air. The instrument panel flickered, circuit breakers popped, visibility dropped to near zero. In desperation, the crew opened the side windows, hoping to vent the smoke. It barely helped. The toxic cloud clung to every surface. Flight engineer Clonor Bello tried to reset the breakers. Nothing worked. The aircraft was flying blind. Captain Gilberto Araujo da Silva, still at the controls, fought to maintain altitude, but he couldn't see the runway, couldn't read the instruments, could barely breathe. The aircraft was descending, not by choice, but by necessity. Then, Relief Captain Antonio Fujimoto stepped forward, calm, focused. He took the controls. Gilberto handed over command. Fujimoto had one goal: get the plane down, anywhere. The crew coordinated through shouts and gestures. Navigator Zilmar Gomez da Cunha scanned maps. First Officer Alvio Basso monitored altitude, but the smoke was winning. Every breath was a battle. At 14:03, with the cockpit engulfed in smoke and the cabin filled with unconscious passengers, Relief Captain Antonio Fujimoto made the call. They wouldn't reach Orly Airport. They'd land in a field, any field. He deployed the landing gear and extended the flaps to 80 degrees. The aircraft banked slightly left, nose pitched up, a desperate attempt to slow their descent. The crew scanned the terrain through the open side windows, searching for a clearing. They spotted an onion field just 5 kilometers short of the runway. It wasn't ideal, but it was flat, open, and their only chance. The Boeing 707 clipped small trees, tearing through branches. The impact was brutal. The main landing gear collapsed and all 4 engines were torn off as the aircraft skidded across the field. The fuselage remained intact, but the aircraft slid nearly 500 meters, veering sideways. The left wing detached and the windshield shattered. Inside, chaos reigned. 10 crew members, including Captain Gilberto, Fujimoto, and Chief Purser João Galletti, escaped through the cockpit windows and forward exits. They stumbled into the field, coughing, dazed but alive. Within 6 minutes, firefighters arrived. Farm workers had already rushed to the scene, trying to pry open doors, shouting for survivors. They found 4 unconscious people in the forward galley. Cabin crew Sergio Balbino, Hannelore Dansberg, relief navigator Salvador Heleno, and a young passenger. Only one, 21-year-old Ricardo Trajano, would survive. He had defied crew instructions to remain seated and fought his way forward through the smoke. That decision saved his life. Inside the cabin, The scene was devastating. 123 people had perished, most still buckled into their seats, overcome by carbon monoxide and smoke inhalation. The fire had claimed them before the aircraft even touched down. The landing was heroic, the survival, miraculous. But the tragedy was already written in smoke, and the world would never forget what happened in that onion field outside Paris. Today, every time you step into an airplane lavatory, you're surrounded by the legacy of Flight 820, from the smoke detector above your head to the fireproof bin below the sink. These features exist because 123 lives were lost to a fire no one saw coming. An experienced crew, a trusted aircraft, 62 live. But at 17,000 feet, something invisible was waiting, an icy killer no one saw coming. What caused a routine trip to spiral into Brazil's deadliest aviation disaster in nearly 2 decades? This isn't just a crash, it's a chilling unraveling of missed warnings, failed systems, and haunting last words. And the twist? Some passengers were saved by a simple mistake. Click on your screen now to uncover the terrifying final moments of VARIG Flight 2283.